Hey, welcome to the BBA today. I didn't actually even look it up. I think we're on number 110, if I remember right. That's what I'm going to go with anyway. I did not actually look that up. I believe we're on the BBA today, number 110. I am Ron Collins, the general manager of the Bikini Krill. I am, as almost always, with Kurt Imber, the general manager of the San Fernando Bears. It is December 16th, I think it is,
Yep.
2065. We're getting ready for the winter meetings and Rule 5. Kurt, it has been a while. How are you doing? What are you thinking about the Brewster these days?
Hey Ron, good to be chatting again. I don't think we've done this since it was May or June or so of the season. I remember we were kind of neck and neck in the division at the time, and you started pulling
Yeah,
away
how
not
did
too
that work
long
out?
after.
How did that work out, huh?
Yeah, I talked some shit too, as I recall. I got like one sim in first place, like the whole season basically.
Yeah, well, you got to talk it when you got it. I think that
Exactly.
pretty much
I
sums
got
it
I
up.
got the last laugh. I lasted longer in the silly postseason exhibition, but I'd rather have the division banner.
Yeah,
I think
nothing matters but the Pacific Pennant. That pretty much
exactly.
resolves all issues, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really excited. As we were chatting just briefly off line here, the postseason is running right along. The wizard Matt Rechtenwald is back to his. He's a machine, man. He's cranking things out, and he's getting the participation points done on the daily basis, and things are moving. Things are really moving. It's exciting. It's exciting to be in this off season.
Yeah. There's like no pause from the postseason to the off season. Pretty much went from like a Friday sim to a Sunday sim, if I remember
There
correctly.
you go.
And this is an exciting sim. I love the Rule 5 draft. It's like probably my favorite. Amateur draft's good too. I like the two drafts, but the Rule 5 draft is fun. I think we get this is the long sim too, where it does like the archive as the year
Uh,
turns.
yeah.
Um, but we've got some major free agent signings, quite a few trades that have gone down. So I'm excited to kind of go through those with you,
Yeah.
team by team, division by division.
Well, why don't we go ahead and kind of jump into that? I'm not sure where we'll wind up before it's all said and done, but let's start with the Frontier Division, the home of what we used to call our beloved Phoenix Talons, but now that they're repeat champions, I don't know if we can speak of them quite as endearing of tones, can we? Is that just doesn't seem right anymore? Congratulations to the Phoenix Talons for their dramatic um, run through the BBA for the second year in a row. What are your thoughts around the Frontier coming through last year? What interesting division, right?
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing you gotta say about Phoenix is uh, they still don't bother me yet. Nashville was dominant for so long that it's like still refreshing, even after two straight titles, to see a different team doing that. Um, but Phoenix was pretty clearly like the cream of the crop in that division, and you never know how much like the Heartland deals with this too. Like how much is the rest of the teams not having a lot of wins just a result of like Phoenix beating the crap out of them. Because Phoenix was a juggernaut last
Hmm.
year. They did it all with like, as Sean would say, like two and a half starting pitchers too, which shows you just how good the offense and the bullpen is. But there's some other teams in the Frontier that are like going to be in the mix. I think like they have some
Hmm.
teams that didn't win a lot of games last year, who I think probably still scare people. Like I feel like Rosenblatt is a team that can come out of anywhere, come from anywhere. Calgary is kind of that team. And then they had five of the eight teams over 500.
Hmm.
Boise kind of overperformed, but Austin kind of underperformed. And then Vegas, always tough. Mexico City, kind of aggressively adding to their club as well. They've acquired quite a bit of headliner talent. So um, I guess before I kick it back to you, speaking of headliner talent, I think the most interesting thing happening in the division is what Phoenix is doing this offseason with their trade block. So they
Mm-hmm.
put, I don't know if it's the three best players on the team, but it's the three biggest names in the lineup in my mind. They got a really good center fielder who flies a little more under the radar. Gatuda Chapa is the one that hasn't been traded yet. He might be a little overrated, which is probably why he hasn't been traded yet. He's one of those guys who hits a ton of dongs, but war is war, man. It's omnipresent for a reason, and he's more of like a 3-win home run type slugger. But
Right.
they did trade Adrian Talent. Going back to my awful pun a moment ago.
They did.
And in big news too, Nashville, and I'm surprised nobody has really like responded to that in any way on the boards or in the chat or on Discord. Maybe just kind of a weekend Super Bowl weekend hangover type thing.
Yep.
And then they traded their third baseman whose name I think his first name is Muhammad in my brain. He is Muhammad something something something.
Something bin
But he came
Salad.
into our division. Bin Sal, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
But he's in our division now, and he's kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I know I just talked a lot, covered a lot of topics. So feel free to respond to whatever you want to. But I'm especially interested in hearing what you think of those trades.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going back into the season, I think Phoenix is not structured in the same way that Nashville is. Phoenix is in a more traditional
No.
a rise and fall kind of thing. You look at the minor league system that Sean has, which is not completely bare, but it's not looking like it's going to be a perpetual motion machine, right? Now, that having been said, the infamous trade block, I have. I love Sean Marco. Sean Marco is one of my favorite general managers of all time, because he goes and he posts this. First off, he did run into the problem with Nakamura and his contract that out of the park did him no favors on. But then at the end of the day, Nakamura declined his option anyway. I'm not certain whether that would have worked out any better if Sean had had the extra sim or not. But then, of course, in inevitable Sean stuff, he goes out and he starts pleading the poorhouse, and his run is over, and he's going to post these three players. And the bottom line is, I'm not sure he can really completely do without Bin Salad. I think that's going to be an actual downgrade, but he has players in place. He's got a guy who's I can't remember his name. He's got a guy who's gonna replace Talent, right? He had two outstanding corner left fielders, and he needed to trade one. Do you trade the Min Sal superstar, or do you trade the $11 million Adrian Talent who has one more year of control? Well, you trade the Adrian Talent for one more year of control and get what I think is actually a very good deal for him out of Nashville. I think maybe that's one of the reasons why people aren't discussing it quite as much, because was it Yen and Jafar and another minor leaguer for a right. Talent is paid right, and he's going to get paid. He's $11 million this year. His arbitration, if I remember right, is like 13 next year. And one of the reasons that I remember right, in full disclosure, is I was deeply in conversations to bring Adrian Talent to Bikini, and at the end of the day, I finally looked at Sean and I said, I just can't beat what Nashville can do. So you need to go and do your thing. So I'm very familiar with that kind of dynamic. I knew what Sean was doing by that stage. But yeah, I think Phoenix is interesting. I think that move perhaps, if they'd been able to re-sign Nakamura, he might be considered the odds-on favorite to three-peat. Now I'm not sure. Nashville is so good. That's the preseason media guide is going to be an interesting one to look at. But I think that the Frontier often, I think at the end of the day, if you dig down through what's going on in the Frontier, for the future, I think Justin in Rosenblatt is always dangerous, but he's kind of burned through some of the capital that he had when he first came in. And I know he's also been sidetracked with that really cushy job that he's got where he doesn't have anything else to do, So I think Rosenblatt may be in for a little bit of a flat spot. I think Mike Calvaruso coming in, the story of Mike Calvaruso coming in and taking over San Antonio is a great story for me, because I remember when Mike was in San Antonio before. He's a very good general manager. He's dealing with financial things right now. I'm going to be really interested to see what he does. I thought his moves toward the middle and end of last year were the beginning of the real work that he's doing, right? I mean, for example, him trading Hussam to me at the end of the year as a financial thing. Clearly, he's getting his mind around what he's doing right now. He picked up a free agent. I can't remember who he picked up. I thought he did anyway. To me, the most interesting stories, though, inside the frontier are in the triad of Vegas, Mexico City, and Austin, because Vegas is in a really interesting situation. Matt, I'm certain, as we talked about just before hitting the record button, Matt has got to be really energized around the two rookie hitters he's got, sparkling power guys, but he's not got anything around pitching, and you're hearing him walk around Discord in the trade block saying none of these guys can pitch. It's like, I know he was dying to get his teeth around some pitching, and you look at his roster and he's going to have some trouble with that. But Mexico City and Austin are both doing some really interesting things, and Mexico City's offseason this year would have probably been, Brandon is making some interesting trades, and I think he brought in a free agent. Again, I need to look at it again to make sure, but if Phoenix had not done their little trade block, Mexico City, in my mind, their offseason would be the story of the frontier. Because both Mexico City and Austin finished at 84 wins. Vegas, with their two hitters, finished at 86. If I'm Matt right now, I'm going, oh my gosh, this is like the worst time to have these two great guys, because Phoenix is the behemoth on top. I shouldn't use the term behemoth because they're the monster on top, right? I think they've got 1 to 2 more years left on their window. Mexico City and Austin are just doing this slow grind, just constantly getting better. So what do you do if you're Las Vegas? I don't know. And then you've got Boise, who, quite honestly, I don't know how they won. So I mean, they finished over 500, right? They finished at 84, 86 wins.
83. Yeah.
That's just a silent little, a quiet little team that just wins games in that division. So I don't really know what to think of it. I think at the end of the day, Phoenix has to be viewed as the presumptive favorite going forward, especially given some of the things that they have done. They brought over Anderson in that trade with Vancouver. Yen. So they've added in the pitchers that they needed to add in order to have the stable thing. The 2.5 pitchers during the playoffs is, again, I chuckled with Sean on the 2. You'd only need 3 pitchers in the playoffs. You're fine. And Dobbs works.
The pitcher. He's a third starter, yeah.
Yeah, he's fine. He's if you had a middling offense, you really needed somebody better than Dobbs. But with that offense, you just needed somebody who could bring it into the bullpen. And
that bullpen, he's turned over the bullpen in the 5th or 6th inning.
Right. So, that's kind of my feeling when I look at what's going on in the frontier. I don't know what Kevin is. Kevin seems to be.
I think he's rebuilding, maybe.
I think
he's not all in, but
yeah.
Yeah.
And right now, I don't know. Usually, when I would look at a team like what Calgary is doing, I would say they feel like they don't really know what to do. Right now, I don't know that that's a bad thing for Calgary. um, there's just so much going on with this in the competition that it might actually. Let me look at their roster real quick
They
before
have
I
like a
say
couple of like
stupid.
real young stud players, and then they have some like older veteran players who
Yeah,
had down years that kind of sunk them. And I think the feeling is those old expensive players are kind of a weight around their neck, but they don't want to trade, and they're basically untradeable, but they don't want to
right.
trade the young studs either. So your point, they're just kind of treading water, and I don't know that Phoenix is a 95 plus win team anymore. So maybe they can be in the mix if things just kind of spike their direction.
Yeah, yeah. Here's what I was getting to is I think Calgary at this point, when you look at their minor league system, to me they look like they're a year and a half to 2.5 years away. So it's almost like, would you want to spend a whole lot of your resources right now to try to get into the upper division, or do you wait for like another year and then start trying to marshal people to come along underneath this second wave that are coming in? Because especially in the arms, I think Calgary has often struggled with pitching. Um, when
Yeah.
you look at what they're coming up with in the minor leagues, they've got two interesting starting pitchers that are about 2 years away, and then a whole plethora of bullpen arms, which makes me go happy. Right. um, I think Calgary's time trade. Calgary, to me, when I look at them, feels like a mini Valencia when I look at the Pacific. That I'm sure when we get to the Pacific, we can talk about what Greg's doing there. But I think Greg is probably a year or three fully away from being really strong, and I think Calgary is a year or three away from being kind of strong if they can marshal some additional resources over the time. Kevin is a very quiet worker when it comes to building teams, and he's rarely out making the headlines on the big splashy deals, but he's always almost. It is unusual to see him have a team not capable of winning 85 games. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think he needs Little and Gallegos to rebound and rebuild some value so he could potentially trade
Mm-hmm.
them. Basically, they were kind of. I don't think Gallegos was untradeable strictly in the strict sense, but like it's just a feel bad to sell low on him after buying him the previous offseason.
Right.
Um, so agree. Calgary, if anything, Calgary goes a little quiet sometimes and doesn't get too aggressive one way or the other. Which, to your point,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, patience is an underrated probably trait amongst the GM in our league because like there's a tendency to get too active and like you kind of just have to let some things play out. And Calgary lets guys have down seasons and they bounce back and they trust the process, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's very frustrating when you're a human being. Um, you know,
Yeah,
nobody likes to lose. It's not fun to lose. I like winning, man. It's like better than losing. um,
yeah,
Um, but I think that right now they're a little bit threadbare. And so, like I said, I
yeah.
don't know if Kevin is actually making attempts to do some things. It's not boiling up to success, but I'm not sure that that's a bad thing for them right now. So we'll see what happens before it's all said
Yeah.
and
So
done.
last things I'll say on the frontier is just I'm excited to see if I agree that Austin definitely just kind of grinding away, slowly getting better every year. So I'm excited to see if that keeps going, it's gonna be hard to keep Chuck out of the playoffs because he's gonna be getting up into the mid to upper 80 win area if he
Yeah.
does that again next year. And they had a good run differential, so he might have even had some bad luck, and they might be set up to be pretty good. And then I'd be remiss to not just again emphasize like I think if any team like shoots up the standings out of nowhere or like surprise wins the division over Phoenix, it'd be Mexico City. And they've just added a lot of. They're you called it grinding away, but I feel like Brandon's swinging for the fences, slugging, slugging home run acquisitions like Ollie Long,
Hmm.
and was it Randy Wright the off
Yep.
season before with Vegas. He's
Right.
bringing in some like superstar established players, and there's some young pitchers coming up for them, and So things could they're gonna have a really good offense. Things could come together quickly. They're just kind of maxed out on salary now, so they're done. They got to
Yeah,
go to war with what they got.
yeah. I wouldn't argue with you on that. I think I would characterize both Austin and Mexico City to have been grinding it out. Mexico City, Brandon definitely seems to have kind of decided that now is his time and he's going to get racy because he's been making a series of trades and it's going to be kind
Yeah,
of a new look Mexico City, a new look, old look Mexico City. And so I would agree if there's a, it's part of what I mean when I say if I'm in Matt's shoes, I'm wondering what the heck's going on and what am I going to do because he may find himself in a much more competitive situation than he expected. But then again, Matt, what that means is that come June, Matt is going to run a fire sale and then get into the
right.
playoffs, right?
Yeah, always dangerous.
So let's move on. What you want to move to the Heartland or the Atlantic? You want to flip flop Frick and Johnson, or go straight down to Johnson first?
Let's go to the Heartland since Twin Cities is the team that lost in the Monty Brewster, and they're a Heartland team. And we talked about Nashville a little bit. It's hard to avoid talking about Nashville, unfortunately. And before we jump into the Heartland, I just wanted to pose a question to you that just popped into my head. We're like a one behemoth league right now, right? It's just Nashville. I think Sacramento is officially dead, and I had them as a behemoth there for a while. It's just Nashville, right?
Yeah, I mean when
Farm City's dead too.
yeah, Charm City and Sacramento and Nashville were the three behemoths, and they were truly actually operating like behemoths. Neither of them, none of the three were on a high wave to crash, right? As far as that goes.
Right.
Although it is fair to say Sacramento was a little bit borderline because toward the end there, Shoeless was um, doing unshoeless kinds of things and doing a lot of trading of future for now in
Yeah.
certain places, right? So I'm not certain that Sacramento was going to continue to be a behemoth, except that Shoeless is one of the most magical general managers in the league, as you see with Shoeless taking over Cobble Hill, which we'll get into shortly, I suppose. But yeah, Twin Cities, Allen. Um, I mean, my hats off to Allen. He had a really rugged end to the year before. A 10-game losing streak to get out of the playoffs has got to be crushing. Um,
Yeah.
you know, I can roll with disappointment as well as about anybody when it comes down to missing things. But a 10-game losing streak, and then he did not. If I recall right, Twin Cities did not come out of the gate really fast in
Did not.
2065, but he stuck with the program. I think he's been rejuvenated. Allen, for those who have not competed against Allen for however many 30, 40 BBA years, Allen is one of the most inventive general managers that I personally have ever run into. Um, he has so many innovative ideas, and I think he got rejuvenated around the idea of looking deeper than ratings and looking into personalities and interactions and you know damned if it didn't pay off because the last two-thirds of the season he was arguably Twin Cities was arguably the best team in the league, bar none, and it makes total sense when you look at it from the point of view of how they ran through the postseason. There is no better postseason general manager in the league than Allen. He will get the most out of his team on a day-by-day, 7-day plan than anybody else. So I'm that was a textbook chunk of general managing as far as I was concerned. They have
Yeah.
not, they're in an interesting situation now.
Yeah.
I'm looking. They One of my interesting questions for you is, what do you think of the trade that brought Todd Early into his
Yes.
organization. And what do you think of Todd Early? This is an Alan Ehlers team, Alan Ehlers guy,
Yeah.
without any question whatsoever. Um, Literally no bat, but one of the best catching gloves, framing, blocking, arm combinations in the league. I think he was trying to do something like that when he Rule 5'd my Takiji Takada in the offseason. Um, but
Yep.
in my mind, it looks to me like he's going to go ahead and play him, and if nothing else, defensive replacement for crap. What's his catcher's name? He's got a really solid offensive catcher.
Oh, the guy who used to play first, Matt Malone or something?
Yeah,
Malone,
something like that.
something Malone.
Yep. Um, I know that's
I
kind of an esoteric question for a Twin Cities question, but what do you think of this
yeah.
absolutely unable to hit catcher coming into the team? How do you think Allen is going to use him?
I barely pay attention to catcher arm, for better or worse. This is probably one of my weaknesses. So when I saw him make that trade, I was like, oh, I mean, I remember early from the draft, he was on my board. He got taken a few spots before me, and I was about ready to move on him too. But when he Rule 5 that guy from Allen always has like 5 catchers with 10 framing. So it's kind of like, why is he trading assets for a 10 framing catcher? He usually gets these guys in the Rule 5 draft. And then he made a post about the arm being actually the more important thing. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he seems to only want catchers that are either 10 framing, really good hitters, like Malone was, former first baseman or whatever. Or now, he wants a guy with arm as well. And he made a good point. I mean, steals are just kind of running rampant, and Phoenix
Mm-hmm.
is kind of the poster child for that, the team who beat him in the Brewster, and he wanted to have somebody who could handle a running game. So that stuff all made sense. Personally, I just like can't. It's kind of funny because I'm kind of a stats guy. I love war. I'm always like defending war, and yet I just cannot bring myself to go with those catchers that Allen uses, who just seem like they're automatic 2 or 3 war
Mm-hmm.
just because of their framing. I just I can't do it. My catchers have to hit a little bit. So like I get where he's coming from. Early will probably be worth 2 or 3 war if he had to play a whole year, even if he doesn't hit it all. But more importantly, Allen loves matchups, so he's always wants guys who have like very specific skills, and really has that. So he'll be a weapon for him in the postseason. But my thoughts on the trade were that it kind of made sense for Mexico City. They're trying to win. They're not trying to do the Todd Early thing at catcher. They got 3 arms. They need arms. So they got some good young pitchers. But I thought the real story of that trade was the guy who got paired with Early, and Allen pound for pound writes the best team news posts in the league in my opinion, and he covered this in detail in his post about it, where he said, the trade was really about the third baseman he picked up, Benua,
Mm-hmm.
who doesn't like jump off the screen, but Allen seems to have a very good talent evaluator. He'll probably bump a point in power or something, and be a 900 OPS third baseman in 2 or 3 years. And we'll all remember this trade. It might not be the Todd Early trade. It might end up being the Benua trade. Mexico City gets some usable arms, and I get where they're coming from. They're not going to be playing Benua next year, or the year after, or anything. But I think that's what it was all about, and it's cool because Twin Cities doesn't normally, like he said again. He covered this in the post. He doesn't normally trade for prospects. Not really.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't hoard them. It's not really his thing. But he just every once in a while locks in on a guy, and he usually doesn't miss when he goes after a prospect type guy like that.
There you go.
That was a pretty long winded answer to your question. Um, but Twin Cities is also at a crossroads because they've had a couple of starting pitchers they've been riding for several years who look like they might be kind of done. Jerry Stone's the name of one of them.
Yeah, he's going to move
What's
to
the other
second
guy's
base,
name?
I think.
Right. He's doing the opposite of the position players who move to pitcher transition in their careers.
Yeah.
He's not a knuckleballer. He's just gonna play second. But who's the other
Yeah,
guy?
Stone and Brooks have been his keystone
Brooks.
pitchers
Yeah,
for a half a decade or more, and yeah, I think they're. I think it's
decade and a half.
yeah, yeah, um, a while. So I think those are
Yeah,
coming to an end. Although they both got something left. I think you know they're
yeah,
just not one. They're not number ones and twos kind of guys anymore. But they've got Jensen and what Garcia, if I recall right,
and
and Wimp. Yeah, Wimp.
Wimp's the stud, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
But yeah, those guys are mostly pretty young. Garcia, I traded him. Garcia, I still don't get that guy. He's got 5 home run against. It works somehow. Must be at the very top of that rating bar.
Yeah.
Um, Sanchez was he the player of the year in the Frick, right? Their second baseman.
Hmm.
He's got all this young talent, but then he's got huge financial issues. So I think he's gonna see what happens next year, but he might not be able to be as patient next year if he's not like in the playoffs come July or August. He might have to start trying to figure out his finances a little bit. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. And I think ultimately, if the tale of Twin Cities is a tale of woe of being in the same division as the
You
last remaining behemoth for all this time, because it's extremely hard. Well, 2 years ago, Chicago won the Heartland, and now I think Renato has kind of faded a bit. The pitching, the massive pitching, has not been enough to overcome the division. And Twin Cities being in there, Des Moines is a really interesting team. I thought that Jesse's acquisition of the GBC guy, Nilani, is that right? I have to look it up.
yeah.
Um,
Yep.
was a very pricey acquisition, but probably the right one for him. And if you're going to throw all your money into one guy like that, better be the one that fits you the best. Um, Toward the end of he brought in Nebraska at the end of last year. I think the things that he did last year are going to make Des Moines a much more competitive team for this coming 2066. Um, so, kind of the same conversation I had with Las Vegas in the Frontier when you think of Twin Cities is they had a massive run, a really good run. Perhaps they were lucky in that you guys knocked off Nashville in the postseason, so they did not have to face Nashville. I don't know. Um, but the Heartland is an interesting division because I'm not certain. Last year, I thought the Heartland as a whole was making a fairly major step up. Um, I think the three-headed beast of Nashville, Twin Cities, and Des Moines are still going to be there. The interesting nuance to me is, Rob in Yellow Springs had a really nice year, only missed the playoffs by a week or so. I think he was in the run until the last week or two. Chicago, I think, is better than their 80 wins. I don't know that they're going to be able to compete against Nashville, Twin Cities, and Des Moines. Chicago hasn't done anything major in the off
No.
season, have they?
No.
Right. It was interesting to see Brook Park bring in your Yu Suzuki.
Yeah.
Morris is an extremely interesting general manager. I haven't really been able to get a flavor for what Morris likes to really do. But I thought that was a very interesting acquisition, a signing. And then you've got Madison and Louisville, and I think Louisville is the anti-story from last year because I thought Louisville was on a really nice run, and things just have imploded. I don't know what to think there. If I were in Brian's brain, I would probably be pretty unhappy. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think Brian has made any real mistakes, or
No.
back three, what was it, three off seasons ago when he brought in Akers and Brown, and then that just blew up in his face. I mean, you
No.
do. That's the thing about this game. You do the right things, and you can still lose. It's really annoying.
Mhm.
um, so, from a off-season standpoint, I don't think Madison hasn't done much of anything. They brought in one. They brought in a free agent hitter, didn't
Marzuk.
they? Marzuk
Shit.
or
Shit.
Marduk. Marduk.
Yeah.
Um, so that's helpful. Um, but I think it's
My thing about Marzuk is he got a 6-year deal. So I feel like Madison should be more in the market for like getting guys on shorter deals so they can flip in trades for prospects. And that I don't know if Marzuk is going to be that guy because of
yeah,
the length of his contract. But he does fit with their whole defense first, athletic player kind of thing.
yeah, and he's youngish, right? So I don't think
He's
he's
28,
yeah,
so like
yeah,
not really. The game now, I feel like guys, the new 27 is 25. So like, he,
yeah. Maybe we should have a whole rather than
yeah,
we
maybe
should
don't
probably
open
have a
that
whole
can of worms.
conversation about what we think about development. I just think it's a fascinating. I have been very unhappy with development um, for the past couple of seasons as I've settled into 26, but I'm starting to see things, and I don't know that I'm happy or unhappy with it. I just think it's
It's different.
working so differently, just so differently than where my brain was at that I'm suddenly having to rejigger it. So a 28-year-old who's been performing relatively well still feels like it almost, I mean, I worry about his last 2 years of his contract, but I don't know that I worry about him like crashing at 28. My feeling is if he crashed it, and I'm making this up, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I'm adding patterns as a human being, and I'm saying, a lot of 25-year-olds are crashing, but it's like if they can seem to get through that 25, 26, then they seem to roll on through a little ways, right? I, I don't know. Um, I can make up patterns in my head. Um,
It it feels like players don't like I call development like current ratings
mhm,
meeting up to potential ratings. Like when I write my team news posts, I call that development.
mhm,
And it feels like it's all about lumps and bumps now, where guys there's a lot of lumping going
yeah.
on for guys in like their mid 20s, but then there are like big bumpers too, but that's kind of like replace development. Like instead of a guy just like grinding away towards his potential, it's like you just have a guy who just bumps kind of out of nowhere
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
becomes a star.
Yeah. We definitely need to have a good solid 20 or 30-minute conversation about examples in the league of
Yeah.
how some guys are doing certain things. I just don't think that the system works the way I used to.
Yeah.
I am 95% sure I knew how the system used to work, and I'm 90% sure it does not work that way anymore.
Yeah.
I'll just kind of leave it at that. Um,
But
but yeah,
to go ahead, finish your thought. Sorry.
my fundamental thought is that, if I look at where the teams in the Heartland went through 2065, to me, the surprising pieces were Louisville dropping so rapidly. It's not that surprising that Yellow Springs has had a solid year because they've always seemed to have more talent than they have put onto the win column. Um, I'm a little bit surprised. I thought Brook Park is about where I expected them to be, but I do think that we'll see some interesting movement from them over the next year or two, and we'll figure out kind of what the plan is. Um, I think Renato has probably been reasonably angsty around the fact that the team that he had put together did not perform as well as expected, so maybe that was a surprise. But at the end of the day, it's still Nashville, Twin Cities, and Des Moines as the third wheel that seem to be there, and those are the three that are still churning in the off season as heavily um, as they are, both in the trade market. The Nashville trade I think was fantastic for them. And I think it was really more a matter of Rule 5 coming up, right? I mean, they were able to trade those three guys because they don't have the places on their secondary roster that helps them, right? They both upgraded their major league roster and were able to protect a few of the guys they weren't going to be able to protect. So in the overall picture, it's a fantastic deal for Nashville to get talent.
It is.
But it's also a fantastic deal for Phoenix because their window is still open and they got exactly the players they needed in order to keep their window open, right? So to me, right now, the Heartland feels like it has almost reverted back a year or two ago. I used to think that it was going to be about a 6-team what's the rugby term? Scrum. Yes, I thought it was going to be like a 6-team scrum for the next 3 to 4 years, but in reality, it seems to be going back to the top 3 with perhaps Yellow Springs if Rob can keep the momentum going, and perhaps Chicago if Renato can kind of get the mojo back. But I'm not seeing enough out of the offseason to say yet that is going to happen, right? So.
Yeah, Chicago kind of reminds me of Portland in our division. They're kind of a stars and scrubs team, and if their stars have superstar seasons, they'll be kind of in the mix. But their weakness is kind of along the edges and like depth. So,
right.
They're not going to grind a season out. I think it sounds like I'm a little more high on Yellow Springs than you are. Honestly, the ball in my mind is in Rob's court. Like he has the core put together. Rob just has to confront his demons with like the bullpen and the bench because like he gets negative WAR sometimes out of his bench, and he talks about how he struggles with the bullpen. He's got to figure that stuff out because that's what is going to make the difference at this point. He's got the starting pitchers, he's got the shortstop, he's got like the core team together.
Right.
What else do I want to say? I love the Yu Suzuki contract. I think that was like a bargain. 2 years? Are you kidding? And the fan interest bump alone is like going to pay for that contract. Maybe, I don't know if we got a no trade clause. Like, you could be trading him, in a year and a half if they're still kind of where they are in the standings, which I agree is probably their short-term future. Louisville, I said they ran into the problem of having too many stud 25-year-olds at once and a bunch of them lumped. Like, it almost feels like you don't want your team to be... I mean, I guess Phoenix would disagree, but I almost don't want my team to be built around a bunch of, like, 25-year-old hitters right now, to be honest. And then Des Moines, the thing I wanted to say about them is just, like, I feel like Jesse is the opposite of Kevin in Calgary. Constant motion. But Jesse's track record at this point kind of speaks for itself. I think he mentioned he's made the playoffs like 4 of 5 years or something. Like he's always right there in the mix. His teams always look kind of weird to me. I don't really get it. It's like not conventional. It kind of works, and I agree. Like if that starting pitcher from the GBC is ready to be a top flight starting pitcher, they're going to be really tough. Right. But they're all going to be looking up at Nashville. I think Nashville has another 100-win team on their hands here, and these other teams are probably our competition. Well, I'm hopefully a division leading team in the Pacific, and not worried about the wild card. But I'm kind of always thinking about the wild card, unfortunately. So maybe that's our segue to talk about the best division in the Brewster, the Pacific. Congratulations, Ron! your first Pacific title, like in your BBA career, right? Because you were in the Heartland before.
That is correct. We're now in the best division rather than the second best division. It used, back in the day, it used to feel like the Heartland was the best division, but now something has changed and it's all about the Pacific. So
yeah. You've got a good thing going. I think your team, you're gonna hate me for this, but I think you like overperformed a little bit. I thought Vancouver had the best team until like they just kind of fell apart at the end. A lot of the statistical measures had them like you, me, and Aaron all had like good teams, clearly like division winning capable teams. But Aaron was like a click ahead for a while, and then obviously things didn't work out for Vancouver, and the Bears started really well in the first half and didn't play very well in the second half. So like I'm not trying to take anything away from you because like Vancouver and San Fernando didn't want it. It feels like we didn't do what we needed to do down the stretch, and I think your team is moving in the right direction, like moving forward, getting better with like every move. And I'm not surprised you said you're in on talent because I know you're up to something. You're bringing in too much cash, and you have a little bit of payroll space to work with. So I'm expecting you to do something like that. You're just waiting for the right opportunity. That makes sense.
There you
Um, Looking at the rest of our division, uh, Portland, I think, in Hawaii will be in the mix this year, and our teams that like could even win a division. I think things would have to go quite well for them, but I think they could. And then I think we've got three teams at the bottom where, like, I agree with you. We can talk about how Valencia's on the upswing, but I think those are pretty clearly like the three bottom teams in the division: Sacramento, Long Beach, and Valencia. And Long Beach has kind of like this long road rebuild going on, and Sacramento, I'm not sure which direction they're going, and I'm pretty nervous on their behalf for the Mad Popes. To yeah, I don't know about them. It wouldn't surprise me if they finished eighth in the Pacific next year
go.
if they were to start trading off some of their expensive veterans.
Yeah, I think Sacramento, like I said, Ben was competitive for the first year or two that he came in, was quite competitive. But at the same time, he was kind of burning through the remnants of what Shoeless left. And that's a kind of a tough situation. It's a similar situation that Rob came into Yellow Springs on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see what Ben's got up his sleeve for Sacramento. I think Long Beach is 3 years away from being a serious competitor. But if you start to look at, you know, when you look at the back end of the Long Beach minor league system, you go, wow, there's a lot of good things going on there, right?
First
And
picks do that.
first picks do that, but he's also, I mean, he's got more than first picks going on,
Yeah, yeah,
right? I mean, when you have a body of players like that, that's something more than the first picks. He's got some
for
development
sure.
going on and so forth. Um, but they're all in that A ball and lower level. So you're talking at least 2 years to get them through. And if you assume some level of attrition, they're not all going to make it through, right? That's not going to happen. But at the same time, he doesn't need them all to get through. He needs enough to get through that he can have young, good players that he can then go into free agency. And Lane has a long history of being able to build really good teams out of free agency. This particular year's free agency, I don't feel like it had a whole big depth in it. If he was trying to build a winning team out of free agency this year, I think he would be in some trouble. But most years, there's
Just
enough.
too far away, I
Yeah.
think, too.
So yeah, he's by the time he gets 2 to 3 years down the line,
Yes,
I think that Long Beach is going to be huge. I think Valencia is 1 year away. I think Valencia is going to bounce back, but mostly because last year was such a royal cluster blank for poor Greg. I mean, he put what 25 million, 24 million dollars into Lucio Juarez, and he breaks his arm before the season starts. I mean, that's disheartening. And then several other things occurred. I just think Valencia was a complete mulligan for 2065.
yeah,
I don't think that Valencia is going. It would be unlikely that Valencia is going to be highly competitive for the division, but I think that they will bounce back merely from regression to mean. They had two or three players. Was it Bush? Their corner
yeah,
outfielder had a monstrously atrocious season, right? I mean,
yeah,
there goes 3 or 4 wins just there, right?
yeah.
That he should come back. He didn't seem to lose much on ratings. He seemed like he should be just fine. Um, I think Greg picked up a pitcher in Whitford who will help him as long as
Yeah.
he's healthy, doesn't blow his arm out on in spring training. The bottom is interesting in that sense. It would not surprise me to see Sacramento at the very bottom if Long Beach does anything, but I don't know. Right? That's hard to call on that. Portland,
They
Chris.
might both lose 100 games and like doesn't matter if you lose 106 or 102.
Yeah.
Might be that kind of situation too.
Yeah, I don't know. I like your equation of Chicago and Portland as, both of those teams are, um, and I did not actually look at Chicago. Maybe they had the similar problem that Portland had. I mean, um Chris was devastated by injuries through the first third of the season, right? So essentially, his season didn't seem to start until June. And then he was competitive and he actually made a run for the postseason. He was not out of the postseason until the very end there. Um, if he stays healthy, Portland can be a serious competitor, but the
Yeah.
depth is not really there. So if you're a Vegas betting odds person, you'd probably don't bet on Portland because you have to bet on being healthy, and that's a dangerous thing for 162 games. Um, so whatever that is. Vancouver is a fascinating team. I think that first off, Aaron. Um, how does he make? He makes teams up out of vapor where they just become 85 and 90 win and 92 win teams, right? Um, like Jesse's talking about, Des Moines been in the playoffs 4 times out of 5 years or whatever.
Something. Yeah.
Um, you know, Adding Bin Salah Al Din is a huge benefit to him. He needed a real offensive player, and he got one, right? I mean, that's he becomes one of the strongest hitters in the Pacific Division just pretty much immediately, right? Um, Most likely, his overall numbers will be degraded simply because half of his games are going to be played in that park, but it doesn't make him less valuable. It just means his numbers will look less valuable than perhaps he really is. Vancouver is. I take no offense to your conversation about Vancouver being the best team. It would not be shocking to me to see Vancouver as a Pacific Division winner this year. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's. I would like to think that Bikini can continue to challenge and repeat for our second division championship in a row. That would be nice. I think that we can. I like my team. At the end of the day, I'm still thinking San Fernando. I think your Bears, the pitching staff perhaps got a little worn out, and Perez getting hurt at the end of the year did not help you in any way, shape, or form. If your young pitchers are healthy through the year, it's going to be. You've got a tough team going on right now. So, and at the end of the day, I put James in Hawaii in a similar state as maybe Renato in Chicago. A good team, but just not strong enough amongst some of the teams that are getting really strong. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. There's a lot of stuff going on in the off season right now between Vancouver and you guys are making trades out the tail, and I like the outfielder that we brought in from Mexico City. Most likely he's going to play in the corner and ideally help our. I don't know whether he'll help our defense.
Finally, gonna have good outfield defense, Ron.
We had actually a really good outfield defense at the last third of the year last year, but mostly because we took Sergio Leone and made him a DH and took the sacrifice on offense and had Ramon Sainz play the corner whenever he wasn't playing center field. So Body has a 9 range, 5.5 for arm and error, and so I'm just hoping that the 9 range makes him better than your average left fielder, and we can deal with the 5.5.
He's gonna be great. Yeah, that might be one of the things where we differ. Like you keep saying I'm higher on him. Like who gives a shit about his arm really in left field and like 5 errors, fine.
Mhm.
I'm all about range on defense. He's going to be plus
There you go.
10, 12 zone rating, I think.
That'll make me happy.
Vancouver's starting rotation is the thing that I thought was like, the foundation of their team last year, and now all of a sudden they look kind of thin there. So that's
Mhm.
like kind of the thing I'm going to be watching with them. I don't think Juan Garcia can really have a better year than he had last year. And then they're going to rely on Saito, a rookie, with a
Mhm.
rotation spot. And right now, Yang would have to go back to the rotation, which
Yep.
it's kind of funny. Like he's been a really good pitcher, and yet you're never like really happy to pencil him into the rotation for some reason. He's just one of those guys who's kind of a riddle. I guess like Parker is a gonna win a pitcher of the year award at some point, I think. So like he's really good. So they still have him, but um, what's his name? Bin Salah Al-Din, I think, the third baseman.
Yep.
He's fragile. So I was just kind of looking at his like the back of his baseball card, and like if he never has another 5 WAR season, like it wouldn't shock me. Like you said, that ballpark's kind of tough,
Hmm.
but they'd be happy, I would assume, with like a 3.5, 4 win type player, even. Because you're exactly right. They've got like this system that Aaron plays good defense, and he's got a good ballpark, and maybe they don't need to have great starting pitchers. Maybe like Yang type pitchers is good enough for them, and they should invest more resources in their offense because that's always kind of a problem for them.
Yeah, and the question there is their bullpen strong enough, right? Because you can get away with um, when we have a conversation about quality starts, right? I agree with you fully. Quality starts is not a good predictive measure, and at the end of the day, I don't really pay attention to it. But at the end of the day, if you have 5 pitchers on your staff that all do 20 quality starts, you're going to win a lot of games, right? You don't have to have the absolute top, but you have to have somebody who can get it to the 6th inning if you have a solid bullpen. And they've got 3 or 4 really solid bullpen arms. The question ultimately is, do they have 5 or 6? And the answer is maybe, right? Maybe. Don't know. At that ballpark, with that ballpark, they can, assuming they can score some runs, they can get away with a more mediocre pitching staff, but they got to score some runs to make that happen, right? The ballpark
Yeah.
obliterates uh, traits rather than the conversation about do you build for a ballpark or not is a really interesting one, right? Before it's all said and done, because at the end of the day, you want good baseball players in the park. Then the show makes good baseball players look better or worse or whatever. I don't know. Um, it's uh, Vancouver is the quandary of the division right now.
Yeah.
I think I kind of know what's going to happen, whether teams are going to be competitive or not. I am not saying Vancouver is going to win the division. It just won't surprise me if they're at the top of the division because Aaron just does this kind of thing all the time. And the team that he's got right now is not the team that he's going to have in June, right? And then it's not going to be the same team as in August and on down the line. So predicting,
Projecting, I like that. It's a new one.
projecting. Um, Predicting Vancouver is a very difficult game before it's all said.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. We better. You have one final thought on Pacific? I was gonna say we better talk about the Atlantic
yeah,
because
I
that's
was
probably
gonna say let's
one of the
move on
most
to the
storylines.
Atlantic, and let me talk
Yeah.
about the Atlantic for just a second. And we're just talking about pitching staffs, right? If you go look at what Doug has done in Cobble Hill, I swear, just pull up his team's pitching staff and the ratings, and just look at the ratings of those starting pitchers, and you'd go, eh. The overalls. He's 45s and 50s. And I mean, he does not have these big blue numbers on his starting pitchers, but they were the best starting pitching staff in the league last year, right? Um,
Even
they're
with the career-ending injury too. Um,
right,
one of the guys,
right. Um, there is some OOTP neep deeply inside that, because the reason that they are in the there is a reason they were the best starting pitching staff in the league last year, and it is embedded in the ratings. It is just not embedded in overall and potential, right? It's embedded in control and embedded in movement slash home runs. That's that profile is what has created the Cobble Hill pitching staff. Um, and it's amassing resources. Doug is so good at building teams. Um, so I should start with kudos to Cape Fear for being the division leader, but watch out, because Doug is on his way. Doug is on his way. So anyway, that's my entryway into the Atlantic. Talk to me about what you're seeing going on in the Atlantic Division right now. It is really a fascinating division to me.
Cape Fear is going to have a hard time repeating. I think I would say like they caught lightning in the bottle, and they're not like they're going to be a bad team next year or something, but they just they had some things kind of go their way, I think, and they're building
Mhm.
up a pretty good young team, but I don't know. I'm on their roster page right now, and they had one position player over 3 WAR, and it was Senzo Sato, the second baseman, who I'm like kind of surprised is still a starting player in the BBA. Obviously, he's still a good player, but like most of the offense doesn't blow me away too much. There's some power hitters. Sam Butler had a really down year. That's a guy who used to be an automatic 4-5 WAR catcher, so maybe a rebound from him helps. But he's 30 now. They've got some good young pitchers, but um, Cape Fear will be in the mix. But yeah, the money would have smart money would be on Cobble Hill for sure because it's shoeless more than anything else. And he's got his system in place, like you said, control, movement, and then defense. But he's got some hitters too. I mean, the guys who are playing defense can hit. Um, so I mean, the whole division is kind of other than New Orleans. I don't know. We're gonna have much to say about New Orleans. That's a rough situation, and Jim has kind of made light of it and had some team news posts, kind of just indicating like, yeah, he's very unhappy with the situation. But that's not a team that's going to turn around anytime soon. So I don't have a whole lot else to say about New Orleans. But every other team in the division, we said this last year. We might have said this 2 years ago. Like they all can play. I think when we last podcasted, Atlantic City was in first and they finished seventh.
I know it.
uh, and that's still a pretty good team. Like I don't know, they could be a wild card team next year, and I don't think it would surprise anybody.
Yep.
Um, Charm City still has Hector Silva, so like I don't know, like things could go right for them. I think there's still a little bit of that Dave pipeline left, although it's just about running dry. But there's some young talent that keeps bubbling up there. And then you have three. I almost called them veteran GMs. I guess the Brooms and Nathan are veteran GMs at this point. Like, and then Aaron and Jacksonville. Those are all just teams that like try to get better all the time. And I would not envy being in a division with those three GMs or GM teams. I guess the Brooms. Um, Jacksonville has kind of said they're ready to start adding pitching, and they've been doing that this off season.
I love Darren's
It was so good.
team news on that. We've decided to do
Yeah.
something. We've
Yes.
been doing the do nothing track for long enough, and that doesn't seem to be working. So we're going to do something.
It's almost like they got almost arrogant about it. Like they made the playoffs so many times with crappy pitching staffs that I think Aaron almost played this game of like chicken to see how bad it could get, and he finally found the answer, so he's improving it. Um, Montreal is going to play with a $50 million payroll, I guess. Bob's been saying, and like they have good young players, but I don't think it's all going to come together like this year. I think that they're developing a good core for the future, but I wouldn't be picking them to be a division favorite. Charlotte, on the other hand, is adding to their team. I feel like I'm always like, there's something about what Nathan does that's just kind of jealous with me because I'm always on here like talking up Charlotte, and I once again think like they've got a strong club and they have some just superstar players like their guy. He's a shortstop now, which is a funny thing to say. Domingo Chavez. That
Hmm.
guy's still 24 years old, which is crazy. Feels like he's been one of the better players for many years now, and I think he has been. But Charlotte's going to be good too. So if I were like doing the prognostication thing right now, I'd probably go like Cobble Hill, Charlotte, and then I feel like Cape Fear, Jacksonville, Montreal are probably the next tier, but wouldn't be surprised for Charm City or Atlantic City to get in the mix too.
Hmm.
That's another year of it being a really good division. Um, that's part of the reason why New Orleans is struggling too. Is because the division is really good around them. They'll probably lose 110 games because of how good all the other teams are. But final thought would just be, I guess, like how good is Cobble Hill? Like, are they already? Are they this like does are they already Sacramento again, where Schulis is going to win the division 9 of the next 10 years and win 100 games every year, or they gonna? I just can't imagine them taking a step back. But that's kind of the thing on my mind is like how much longer can there be 7 good teams in the division, and how much longer will it take for Cobble Hill to create a behemoth there?
Yeah, I don't know. Now, your comments about Nathan in Charlotte. I mean, um, the thing that defines Nathan is that he is constantly thinking about his team. It seems like he's constant. I loved reading his team news every sim last year as he's going through each game. You know, he's very cognizant of what's going on his team. He's constantly looking for good value, and he's constantly bringing in interesting players. His contract for Dogar last sim, let me pull it up here. It was like 20 million, 22 million. Yeah, and then a couple of teams. What a fantastic contract for, um,
Yeah,
essentially a 3-year contract with 2 team options to help him get out of a possibly 36-year-old wrecked pitcher. Um,
yeah,
you know, it's a great contract for him, in my opinion, because though Dogar is wrecked, he's been able to make it through seasons. So the injury history is acceptable, and he needed that kind of a player to come in to make him a competitor, a real competitor inside the division. The Brooms um, are similar to where I think about Kevin Dixon in the Frontier, in that, but they are much more engaged and active. I think that team is the GM team is fantastic, with Bob being consistently around and interacting, and I'm making stuff up in my head about their relationship. My guess is that Eric is cognizant about what's going on, but is busy living life and doing things, and it's a great way for father and son to share a fun hobby, right? Um, I'm a little jealous of them in that sense. And maybe Bob can comment about that sometime if he hears this. I don't know. But the bottom line is they're really smart. They're really paying attention. They know what they are trying to do, and they go out and they do it. And if it doesn't work out quite right, that's fine, because, like I said, this great thing about this game, in my opinion, is that you can do all the right things and still lose. Or sometimes you can make a mistake and it works out, and you go, "Oh, well, yes, I meant to do that." It's a thing. The Atlantic, and yeah, and poor John John Mumber, when we were last podcasting, had a division leading team and wound up in 7th place. I mean, if that doesn't tell you about the competition inside this
yeah.
league as a whole, in the Atlantic right now, as a microcosm, that tells you what you need. Joe Lederer is a fantastic general manager. I think Joe has been highly strapped for time, and um, So I think Charm City is suffering the pain of that. It's kind of like Chris in Portland, but Chris has been able to keep his irons in the fire just a little bit more. And my last comment thought on your entryway into this, I do not think that Cobble Hill is ready to go off on a 20-year run. I think that they are in year 2 or 3 of Shoeless, perhaps eventually building something like that, but Cobble Hill does not have the minor league system right now set up to have a self-perpetual motion machine. It's just not there right now. I think that's part of what makes this team so fun for someone like Doug to run, is if he's going to keep winning, he's going to have to keep being inventive and look at things in new ways, right? He's going to have to keep finding, again, look at the overall ratings of that pitching staff, and if you look at it and just say, oh, they're all 45s and 50s, and they're a nice little pitching staff. But no, they're the best pitching staff in the league. How does that work? It works because Doug knows what he is trying to accomplish, which is really super fun to watch, right? So,
Yeah.
It's from an off-season standpoint, this my feeling is that Montreal is attempting to do things and striking out. Because that happens sometimes too, right? The whole thing about out of the park free agency is it's not quite a one and done kind of thing, but you better if there's a player you really want, you better make your real offer right away, because he's probably going to sign pretty quick, because there's enough competition for resources out there that you're not going to get too many good players hanging out into January. You get sometimes workable players and useful players, but you're not going to get the guy that you really want to plug into your lineup. So that's why things like Charlotte picking up Dogar. That's a bold move, and I like that. And Nathan does bold moves. He picks the guys he wants and he makes them happen.
Yeah.
And you just see that happening through this. The whole storyline of the Atlantic through last year, Charm City's fall. That last year was the real fall of Charm City. Cobble Hill's rise. I agree. I loved your point. Cape Fear kind of caught lightning in a bottle. Will they happen again? I would guess not, but it's not completely impossible. Senzo Sato. What's the chances of him doing another 3+ WAR season? It's all glove. Everything with him is glove, right? Is that worth 3 WAR? I don't know, but it was last year. So good news. And yeah, poor Jim. The writing is on the wall for Jim. He's essentially got to completely redo, and we'll see what his mindset is on that. Because I think that can be invigorating once you finally come to the conclusion that you've hit rock bottom and you really just need to do it all over again. I'm gonna guess that New Orleans is in for another couple of years of struggling in the bottom of the division, but we'll see what happens. It's been a really active and really interesting offseason. Every division has its own stories kind of rolling. So, and that rolls us into Rule 5.
Yeah.
Which is perhaps even done now. I don't know whether there's the Super Bowl is probably over. Did we? I didn't look.
Yeah, the only comment so far in the thread is that Shoeless got 2 players from Nashville in the Rule 5. So I'll set the over-under on Bluebirds taken in the Rule 5 at around 4.5, 5.5, something like that.
That could be.
We'll see how many stick.
That could be.
But before we wrap up, Ron, let me ask you one question. It's January 1st or whatever, so this is total just shot in the dark. But if you had to name one team that would surprise and come out of nowhere to win the Brewster in 2066, who's the one team you'd pick?
Come out of nowhere.
And I put you on the spot, so I'll tell you my pick is Mexico City. We talked about them a little bit earlier, and they've added a lot of star power, and I really like that young starting pitcher they have. So I would say they would be coming out of nowhere if they were to win the Brewster next year.
I'm going to give two slightly different answers. Number one, I think Mexico City is a great answer to that. Um, when you plug in come out of nowhere, I'm going to interpret it two different ways, right? My answer would be
Okay.
Jacksonville, because I
Yeah,
think they
that's a
got
good
a
choice.
super strong team, and Aaron is now got a
We're gonna have
got a
pitching.
plan. And my
Yeah,
second choice, and that's why I was hesitating over the term coming out of nowhere, because it's not really out of nowhere, but I think they're medium long odds, and that would be, I think Des Moines is
yeah.
got a really
We thought about
interesting shot right now. It's really
that. Yep.
hard. I don't, Des Moines might win the Monty, but not win the Heartland, right? It's hard to
Yeah.
bet against
Right.
anybody but Nashville winning the Heartland. Not that it couldn't happen,
Right.
but the playoffs are a different beast. I mean, anybody can lose in the playoffs.
All right. Well, we've cursed these teams now, Ron. Especially with you making that proclamation. So that's good. We've cut down our competition a little bit.
There you go. Alrighty, Kurt. Well, I'm gonna bring this to an end. Thank you for your time here tonight. And now that I know there's a sim out, we need to stop talking so I can get to work.
That's right. Me too. It was a pleasure talking to you again, Ron. It's been a little while, but
Yeah.
I'm still having a lot of fun with this Brewster thing.
Yeah, definitely. It is an amazing league. Every one of these general managers are actively working, and that makes for just a spectacular league. And we haven't even talked about the GBC, which is got a collection of general managers who are also very actively working, which is so fun to see. So uh, just so much fun. And so thanks for spending an hour and 15 or hour and 15 minutes. It's been letting me geek out and talk about
Yeah.
fake real
Same.
baseball.
Got my fix.
Alrighty, have a great night, Kurt, and we will chat again later.
You too. Happy trails.